Well, earlier I spoke to the former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, who's been a very vocal campaigner for a second referendum. And I asked whether he thought that Labour's decision to back an election was like turkeys voting for Christmas.
Look, I think mixing up the issue of Brexit with the general election is an act of extraordinary stupidity. I think it's profoundly adverse to the interests of the country. There's nothing wrong with having a general election. Have a general election, but don't mix it up with Brexit. Brexit is a...
But it's the only issue that people can talk about at the moment.
Yeah, of course. What's happened, I'm afraid, is that Boris Johnson was locked in a box. Labour had the key. Unfortunately, he's now been let out of the box. He wants a general election, and his advisors want a general election, not because they believe that they can win this Brexit argument in a straight referendum. They think they'll lose it, so they think they can win a general election by effectively saying to the British people, okay, it's either Brexit with us or it's Jeremy Corbyn, and therefore, even if you don't like Brexit, you've got to vote for me.
Is the only way that you can get a people's vote before the British public on the issue of Brexit now is to have Jeremy Corbyn in number 10 as Prime Minister.
It's to have enough members of Parliament in Parliament who are committed to doing that. But it's a huge gamble.
But you're not going to get that.
Well, this is why whether we do or not is an open question. But the possibility you don't is obviously why an election is not a sensible way to do this. What Labour should have said, what Jeremy Corbyn should have said to Boris Johnson is, have the election. Just don't mix it up with Brexit. Brexit should be decided by a referendum. Now, you answer me, Boris Johnson. Why is it that you are so frightened of going back to the British people and having your deal on Brexit put to them in a confirmatory vote?
So Corbyn caved? Corbyn caved?
Well, caved, I mean, caved is just...
Well, how would you put it?
Because what's happened is, because the Labour Party has at all the twists and turns of its policy, it just couldn't find the words to get up and say what is absolutely obvious.
What will you personally do? Will you campaign to see Jeremy Corbyn in number 10?
Look, I am...
In order to, perhaps finally get the people's vote.
I'm in a special position.
Yes.
Because I've been a member of the Labour Party for over 40 years. I was leader of the Labour Party for 13 years. I'm the longest serving Labour Prime Minister. I can't vote anything other than Labour, right? And I also...
But will you campaign for them?
I will campaign...
Do they want you to campaign for them?
That's another question. But I will certainly campaign for good, solid Labour MPs, and I know a lot of them. They're decent people. I will vote Labour, but there will be a lot of people in the country who are going to be thinking, well, what do I do in these circumstances? And there will be a lot of people who say, I've got to vote in a smart way. I mean, the so-called tactical voting. And I think that is bound to happen, by the way. In fact, if you want the best chance of getting to somewhere where you can get a proper resolution of Brexit, people are going to have to think, how do I vote given...
Including you? So would you be campaigning for Lib Dem candidates in some constituencies where you either don't like the Labour candidate or where you think this is the best chance of casting a vote for Remain?
I can't campaign against the Labour Party. It's just impossible for me to do that.
But given the choice before us, before the country, what would you rather see? Boris Johnson and his Brexit deal in number 10 or Jeremy Corbyn?
I don't want Boris Johnson in number 10 with this Brexit deal.
What about Jeremy?
Absolutely
not.
But
it's either him or Corbyn. Who would you rather see?
No, it's not. I mean, there's a lot of, by the way, different permutations that could come out of this election.
But the splits in the Remain alliance, as far as they exist, have also been mirrored, in the splits within the actual People's Vote campaign, which is shambolic this week. And doesn't really help the cause. So,
look, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of it at all.
They're all your friends, though, aren't you? I mean, on either sides of this debate.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I honestly don't know what the ins and outs of it all are. I do know, by the way, that the people I know who work in the campaign are really fantastic people, and they have dedicated their every working hour
on both sides of this debate.
Yeah, of course.
The reality is it not, that by Christmas we will have Brexit and we will have Boris Johnson installed in number 10?
Well, I hope not. But that's the risk. It's a risk that we should not be taking. We're gambling the future of the country on an election which necessarily mixes up a whole lot of different questions with the central question of Brexit. And it's a foolish thing to do because we didn't need to do it.
And we can see you on the campaign trail, yes or no?
Yeah, you'll see me on the campaign trail. Whether anyone listens or not is another matter.